All right, and let's get started. So, good afternoon, everyone. Hi, I'm Heidi Rhodes, and welcome to Stamp Chat. Today's guest is Mr. Irv Oster. Irv is a member of the Society of Israel Philatelists and the 2020 recipient of their Rachel Memorial Award for Outstanding Service and Contribution to Holy Land and Israel Philately. He is also affiliated with the Judaica Thematic Society and the Association of Registered Graphic Designers of Canada, which you'll definitely see in this presentation. Stamp Chat is a production of the American Philatelic Society. One of the many benefits of becoming an APS member is your subscription to the American Philatelist. The AP is the oldest continuously published philatelic journal in the world, written by members for members. This month's American Philatelist is a joint issue of the American Philatelist and the Canadian Philatelist, the publication of the Royal Philatelic Society of Canada. Members from the APS and the RPSC contributed articles featuring stamps, postal history, and you guessed it, hockey. If you have a hockey fan in your life, be sure to share these magazines and this Stamp Chat with them. And now for our feature presentation, Judaism on the Ice, a Philatelic Perspective. Irv Osterer, contributor to this month's American Philatelist and Canadian Philatelist, and frequent guest on Stamp Chat. Thanks so much for joining us today from Canada.
Thank you so much for the intro, Heidi. Well, you can see from the title slide, it's Judaism on Ice, a philatelic perspective. Just see, get this thing going. And the chat today is in memory of my dad. You can see him, he's in his refereeing gear at the old Ottawa Auditorium. My interest in hockey comes from him. He was the son of a fortuitous generation of Jewish immigrants fleeing the uncertainty of post-World War I Europe for a better life in Canada. Joe was born in 1926 and in Ottawa, Canada. He fell in love and embraced the game of hockey as a youngster. He wasn't an exceptional athlete. And although he didn't show promise as a player, he did as a skater, and he was a professional on-ice official for a decade in the Eastern Professional and Quebec Senior Hockey Leagues. So I got interested in the game directly from him. We watched games together. I started to read more about hockey history as I got older. And I observed how our national game served as an important bridge to a new life in Canada for so many immigrants, and it continues to do so. And I discovered also that there are a lot of Jewish links to the history and evolution of the game that could be explored and documented, given my passion for stamp collecting. And I wondered if a topical collection of that kind could be assembled. And with this presentation, I'll attempt to explore this history through a series of interesting vignettes and some pretty eclectic philatelic material. So the history of the game, there are lots of people with lots of different ideas of where hockey started, where the game of hockey started. Anybody that's taken sort of art history 101 has sort of come across some Dutch paintings that show something happening on the ice. And here's a picture of it. Now there was a terrific book by Giddens, Huda, and Martel called On the Origin of Hockey. And they pretty much cast doubt over the game's Canadian origins. And although there's agreement with most scholars that the first significant organized game took place in Montreal, it's certainly evident from the research that they've done that something that looked like a hockey game was being played much earlier. And I put this slide up, being one of these historical figures shares a common interest. You'll all be familiar with these fellows. And the authors came up with an actual document saying that from Charles Darwin, referring to a hockey game. And the cover of the Origin of Hockey book has a copy of a hand-tinted illustration from 1797, and you can clearly see that something is going on that looks like the beginnings or the forerunner of the game of hockey we know. The name hockey probably comes from hawk ale. Again, this is speculation. There are different people that have different ideas about this. This goes way back in England. And the evolution of the hockey puck in this little graphic that I put together, you can see how it went from a rubber ball to a wooden disc to the hockey pucks that you guys all know today. And the word puck is thought to be a derivative of the Old English word meaning poke. So here's an illustration of the first recorded indoor hockey game that took place at the Victoria Skating Rink in Montreal. It was organized by a fellow by the name of James Creighton. The game was played with a wooden puck, but among the 18 participants that took part in this very, very historic game was Henry Joseph, one of Montreal's elite members of the Jewish community. He was involved in the creation of ice hockey rules as well. And he was a friend of Donald Creighton. We know a lot of this because he lived a long life and he gave several interviews with the Montreal Gazette towards the end of his life where he credited Creighton with the invention of the game. And I guess Creighton himself gave mention to Joseph for helping him put this game together. He had a unique perspective on all of it. He died at the age of 95 in 1951. So he saw, the game evolve from a game played with a wood puck with a pile of players to the game we know today. So the first philatelic connection I have, I was just going to say the game evolved in Europe as well as in North America. In Europe, it stayed more or less as an amateur competition. And the first philatelic connection I found, again, quite by accident, was this series of stamps that were issued in North Korea, dealing with the history of the Olympic Games and the winners of their medals in 1976. And this is a stamp issued to Paul Anspach, who won a fencing medal. And there's a tiny bit of debate whether it was actually Paul or his brother that played hockey for the Belgian national team that finished third in the 1911 European Ice Hockey Championships. But certainly the family was involved in hockey. So I think this is a sort of a cool introduction. Tadeusz Saks was one of the fathers of Polish hockey. He was an Olympian at Lake Placid and in Germany in 1936. And he was also involved with the Maccabea Games, which I'll discuss a tiny bit later. And you can see that he served as an official for the IHF. It's a terrific photograph that a fellow by the name of Birger Nordmark sent me. It was a great image of him as a goaltender. Unfortunately, he and many members of the Jewish community that took part in national and international hockey play perished during the war, and he died at Auschwitz. This is a picture of him at the 1932 Winter Olympics. This image was used by the New York Times. The Polish team came to play at Lake Placid, as did the German team. The Polish team had two Jewish members, Albert Maurer and Tadeusz Saks. The German team had Rudy Ball, who went on to play in 1936 as well. He's an interesting story, Rudy Ball, because the official policy of the Nazi Party was to not allow Jews to take part, but there was some threat from several countries that if there was no evidence of Jewish participation, that they would withdraw from the game. So they reluctantly let two Jewish athletes take part in the games. Rudy Ball was pretty much the best hockey player in Europe between the wars. And you can see, I found a cartoon from one of the papers, and you can see, it's certainly, with the stereotypical nose and things. It's an anti-Semitic leaning cartoon, but make no mistake, Ball was a fantastic player, and he competed and won a Spengler Cup at one point. And you can see there's an article that I actually found in the Toronto Herald. So it was well orchestrated that he was playing for the German team. And he actually, I don't know how he was able to do it, but he actually played for Germany, in Germany during the war. And there's another story to be told about that. His family eventually immigrated to South Africa. If anybody wants, to make a philatelic connection to it, there are lots of great things from the Olympics. And this is from the Garmisch Games. And this is a postcard that was postmarked from the Garmisch Games that you could put into to access Rudy Ball in your collection. The Maccabee Games are another interesting story. By the end of the 19th century, a lot of Jewish people in Europe were buoyed by a call at the Second Zionist Congress in Switzerland, and by a fellow by the name of Dr. Max Nordau, who called on Jews to dispel their bookish image and to embrace competitive sports. And as they were excluded from many sporting fraternities in Europe, Jews just started their own clubs, and names like Maccabi, Hakoach, Hapoel, they were the names given to these popular youth groups. And as we moved into the venue with Olympic Games, it's not a surprise that Jewish athletes won 6 gold medals at the first modern Olympics, and Jewish players were also involved with the game of hockey right from its inception in Europe. The Maccabi Games, the first Maccabi Games, actually the winter ones, had hockey, although they had a hard time playing because it was outdoors. Here's an interesting poster, and there's a picture of the Polish hockey team, Maccabi game team, and here is a postcard that was issued for the Maccabi Games in 1936, and here are several other postcards that were issued, and I do have this wonderful postmark that that commemorates the games. Here is a small list, if you're interested, of the players that perished in the Holocaust. There were several players that perished. These are the ones, this is ongoing research at my end. These are the ones that we do know. And it's really a shame that so many people lost their lives from our sport. After the war, things started to rev up again, and the IIHF that had suspended play took things up again, and they started competition again. And there was a World Ice Hockey Championship in Prague. And I came across this wonderful envelope. You can see that it's postmarked at a stamp show in Brno. It's postmarked at the 50th anniversary of the First Zionist Congress in Carlsbad and at the World Ice Hockey Championships in Prague. And I blew these up so that you could see the postmarks a little bit easier. The hockey one is just fabulous. And the likelihood is this is a cover that was processed by a survivor. It took a lot of work to do it in 3 different places, who was probably either then a stamp dealer or a serious collector. Things were still a little bit of a mess in Europe, but you can see that somebody was very, very passionate about the sport and went to all the trouble to put this stuff together. And for those of you who want to know a little bit more about the word Jubilee, it comes from the Hebrew word Yovel, and it's illustrated in all these things. In North America, as hockey was evolving, there were Jewish people involved in the management end of it. So I've shown you Martin Rosenthal and Sam Lichtenhein and Cecil Hart and Benny Leonard, and each of them played a part in the development of the teams in their cities. Martin in Ottawa, Sam in Montreal, Cecil Hart also in Montreal. They had 2 professional teams. And Benny Leonard with 2 teams that sort of tried and failed in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. Hart was the coach of the Montreal Canadiens and is actually accredited with 2 Stanley Cup victories. He was also a director at one point as well. And Martin Rosenthal was for the longest time involved with the Ottawa Silver Seven and the Ottawa Senators. There was a tidbit that I read that he actually supplied the nuggets to for that somebody gave, so that that's why the Silver Seven name came from. Although that is a bit in contention, we're not 100% sure about that. His family was involved in the jewelry business in Ottawa, and Sam Lichtenhein has sort of like an interesting history of losing buildings through fires. But apparently, he was involved with the crew that changed Canadian hockey from 7 players to 6 on the ice. So I'm going to ask everybody who the first Jewish player in the National Hockey League was. And you have your choice of 3 here who were under a contract for the 1924-25 season: Charles Koch, Joe Ironstone, and Sammy Rothschild. There is interesting histories in all these 3 that sort of go beyond the bounds of this philatelic talk. But the answer is Sammy Rothschild. And I created this stamp through a program called Canada Picture Postage. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. It is possible in many countries to create personal postage. It's just a question of doing the artwork, submitting it, and passing the censors in each country to make sure that the stuff is fitting for public release. and then purchasing your stamps and using them officially. And Canada Picture Postage has got a wonderful program set up for this. And if you take a look at the formatting of this, it's pretty much like this for all their picture postage stamps. There are several border variations, but the image area that you can use is consistent. And again, all the countries have different things. I did find this wonderful image in a 1926 newspaper from the Montreal Star of Sammy Rothschild facing goalie Clint Benedict. Here's what the stamp sheets look like when you buy them from Canada Post. So I'm showing you this picture of Lou Turovsky and Nat Turovsky's studio, the Turovsky brothers, because they were responsible for taking a lot of the images in early hockey at Toronto. And Toronto was, of course, a center of hockey. So there's also all kinds of really interesting things that they did to get these great pictures, even running out onto the ice. But as a philatelic piece, it would be really cool to get one of the envelopes that I'm showing you here, where the Turovskys were sending out photographs to clients for possible publication. And they took this picture of a goalie by the name of Mo Roberts. And Mo Roberts is playing here in Maple Leaf Gardens for the New York Americans, a team long defunct, but had really cool sweaters. This was taken in 1934. And somebody might be wondering why I'm bothering with Mo Roberts. And here he is again, playing for the Americans, this time in the States. But he is a fascinating guy. He is the only player in NHL history to begin and end his career as an emergency goalie. And he was called from the stands, and that's the way they used to do it. And it's happened even in current times. It happened with the Ottawa Senators last year, where they had to call a fellow in from the stands to play when both the starting goalie and the backup goalie went down. But this is fascinating stuff. Roberts was a very good athlete. He played most of his career in the American Hockey League. And at the age of 46, one of the goalies for the Chicago Blackhawks, Harry Lumley, went down, and he put on the pads and went in. And still, he holds the record for the most time elapsed between NHL appearances, the 18th season, and the oldest goalie to ever appear in a National Hockey League game. He did win a Calder Cup in the minors for the Cleveland franchise, the Barons, and he did appear in 10 NHL games. And this is the really, really rare postcard of Mo Roberts that was issued by the team. The team issued postcard. You see that it's signed by him there, and he's suited up for the Cleveland Falcons with the precursors of the Barons. And this I got courtesy of his daughter, Roz Roberts, a wonderful lady living in Cleveland with a great sense of humor. So I asked her if she could pose for a picture, and then she told me that she actually had the sweater that the Blackhawks gave her dad. So I said, put it on, and so she did, and she went out, and her partner took this wonderful picture of her that I'm sharing with you. Team issue postcards were quite the thing for a while. You don't see them as much anymore because the National Hockey League Players Association and other legal things got in the way. The teams were just sort of taking these things and giving them out, and the players thought that they should be getting their part for the promotional stuff. Anyway, for a while, the National Hockey League teams were giving these things out. Sometimes they were sponsored by corporate sponsors, as you see here with this Mike Hartman one. And you can see here, there's the newspaper with Mike Visor, Doug Freeman, who played a little bit with the Nashville Predators and who won a Calder Cup with Hershey. Andrew Berensweg, who played a little bit with Nashville. Again, you can see that they are clearly meant to be postcards. Justin Duberman, who played a few games for Pittsburgh, is now a player agent. David Nemirovsky with the Panthers and the Leafs, who actually played his junior hockey here in Ottawa. And Colby Cohen, who got a game or two in with the Bruins and the Avalanche and finished out his career in Europe. The teams are not into these things anymore, as you know, the interest in postcards have waned. They still give out these promotional things, but they're no longer meant for philatelic use. I wanted to share with you Avi Dunkelman's work. Avi Dunkelman went to design school in Israel. He now teaches at the Ontario College of Art and Design, which is my alma mater. He works in Toronto. He's a terrific designer, and he and his partner got the gig to design all the stamps for the NHL's 100th anniversary. He did a great job, and he signed a few first day covers for us. Here's one that he signed in English and in Hebrew. And you can see in the picture at the bottom, Avi to the left, his partner, and Izzy Baum, the stamp dealer deluxe of Judaica Sales in the background. Here's another cover that he signed in English and in Hebrew. All these stamps are designed by him. And you can see that there are several postmarks that are involved with this. If you get the booklets and the panes, you can actually pick up Dunkelman's signature. I enlarged this here. And you can see that these are for Stanley Cup winners. There are Hart Trophy winners as well that appear on some of his stamps, although there is no stamp to the Hart Trophy. The Hart Trophy was donated by a Jewish individual, Dr. David Hart, and his son Cecil, who we've met before, sat behind the bench for the 30 and 31 Stanley Cup victories. And here's my wife meeting Guy Lafleur, who was a Hart Trophy winner. And for those of you who are in Montreal, there's Chazan Ben Lolo in background at a special tribute to Cecil Hart of the National Archives of Canada. Something that some people are not seeing as collecting interest that I think everybody should have a look at are postal indicia. And you see that Canada Post puts out this publication. It's only mailed to subscribers in Canada in English and in French with the indicia on it. When it's the international version doesn't have it, but you can clearly see that this is coming from the Dunkelman design booklet. Pretty cool stuff to add to your collection. The United States put out a wonderful series of stamps commemorating the history of the game in the United States. And this is a forever stamp. And because the United States issues stamps on first day covers with blank envelopes, it's possible for collectors to get these things and just to put the cachets on them themselves. And with the advent of inkjet printing and it is possible for collectors to do this quite easily. You can even silkscreen them and put linoleum cut blocks on them and woodcuts, depending on how creative you want to be. I made this cover for Ellen Weinberg Hughes, as she was an exceptional athlete, several sports at the University of New Hampshire. She won a silver medal with Team USA at the 92 Olympics for the 92 Women's World Championship. She was named to the tournament all-star teams, and she has the distinction of being the mother of Jack and Quinn Hughes, who are incredibly good hockey players. So I really like this, and hopefully someday I'll be able to get Ellen to sign this for me. And here's the Hughes family now. Dad was an elite player as well, and now coaches and has worked with the Toronto organization. And Luke is eligible for the draft in 2021, and I'm really hoping that the Ottawa Senators think hard about choosing him for our team. And apparently Ellen taught all three of her sons how to skate. And here's the cover I made for Jack. Jack was the first Jewish player to be selected #1 in the annual entry draft. So how many Jewish players have got their names engraved on the Stanley Cup? I have an asterisk at the bottom. Although Andrei Burakovsky comes from Jewish people, he has severed all ties with the Jewish faith, and I respect that. And here are the people that we know have won Stanley Cups that are of the Jewish faith. And there may be some surprises there for some of you. And last year, when the engraving came for the Tampa Bay Lightning, you can see that Jeff Halpern got his name on the cup, as well as Jeff Vinnick, the owner. Jeff Halpern was a fantastic player, and he was an assistant coach with the Lightning. And here are some of the other Jewish names that I did find on the cup. There may be more. These are the ones that sort of came to mind for me to search easily: Cecil Hart, Irving Grundman, Ed Snyder, as well as Vinnick and Halpern. But there may be a few more as well. And to get philatelic souvenirs proves a little on the tough side for this. I did want to share with you this hockey card of Larry's idol. I found it where he lived, and I sent this to him, and he was wonderful. God rest his soul. He signed this thing, and it's one of my favorite pieces of Jewish hockey trivia, where he's got like everything written all over it, and very, very cleanly. You can read all of it very easily. This is a great first day cover signed by Matthew Schneider, who was on the 1993 team that won the Stanley Cup for the Montreal Canadiens, and it is the 1993 Stanley Cup stamp. Schneider also skated in the 98 and 2006 Winter Olympics for the United States, has been inducted to the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame and the International Jewish Sports Hall of Fame. And probably Snyder is the best Jewish player to have ever played the game. This one was a little tougher to get, but this was a wonderful souvenir that was created by the American Stamp Dealers Association to commemorate the Stanley Cup champion New York Rangers. And I was able to track down Mike Hartman, who was just a great guy. And he was happy to sign this for me, and he did it right in the right place. And I told Mike that I would pimp his Mike Hartman Show podcast. And here it is. I've listened to a few of them. They're excellent. If anybody wants to get a really interesting insight into motivational strategies and hear a few really inspirational stories, try looking him up. It's really fun stuff to listen to. Gary Bettman is the current president of the National Hockey League, and he is of the Jewish faith, and I was able to get this cover signed by him. There was a World Hockey Association that was a rival league to the National Hockey Association, National Hockey League from 1972 to 1979. According to my research, I could only find one Jewish player to have played, and I lucked out with this. I was interested in all the graphics while I was going to art school, so I wrote all the teams and asked them to send me, a schedule or something. So I actually have an envelope postmarked in 1972, the year that Winograd played the inaugural season of the World Hockey Association. So this is a really cool souvenir from that. Ben Hatskin was the owner of the Winnipeg franchise that entered the World Hockey Association. A fantastic guy, a philanthropist, an outstanding athlete. He was a friend of Sonny Werblund, and apparently the Jets name may come from his friendship. He just agreed to let him use the name. And here is again one of these envelopes I sent out and got the postmark, the meter cancel actually, from the Winnipeg Jets. And the Jets unfortunately ran into some financial issues, and it forced the move to Phoenix in 1995. When things looked really bad in Atlanta and they had to move a team north, they looked towards Winnipeg as reestablishing a hockey team, and they put a team back here. I'm sorry, not Atlanta, but they looked into putting a team back here, and they chose Winnipeg again. And so they thought about changing the name, but they kept it, redesigned the logo. And this is due to the legacy of Benny Haskin. Canada Post issued some picture postage stamps. Now, these were not commissioned by individuals like the Sam Rothschild one I did myself, but this one was done exclusively by Canada Post, issued in limited numbers, primarily for the Winnipeg market, but available through Philatelic Services, celebrating the return of the Jets to the NHL. And this is the primary logo. And I'm sorry, and here it is here. And I just wanted to make, for those of you that are really into this, you can see that there are two different versions of the stamp. Apparently, when picture postage is being made, if you have the larger sheets done, it is done in a different process. And if you take a look at the sheets of 21 on the left, you can see the halftone dot inside the plane, whereas on the right, you can see that it's a lot clearer. I'm not sure quite why this was done this way, but it is there, and I wanted to call it to your attention. These are all the stamps that the Winnipeg Jets logo appears on, all designed by Avi Dunkelman. So there's always intermissions in hockey games. So here's the first intermission. Can you name all the Jewish players and today's NHL? This is a picture of Quinn Hughes, and here you go. And again, some of you may know some of these fellows, but some of them may be a surprise. Like Nate Thompson is a very, very proud Jewish guy. For the 100th anniversary, a few teams in Canada issued stamps. The Montreal Canadiens issued this one, and what they did is they published all the names of the players that have ever worn the bleu, blanc, rouge. And you see, take a look at the cancel, and you see that Matthew Schneider's name is there. And these envelopes are cached with Mike Camilleri and Jeff Halpern, who are also Jewish fellows, but they came after the stamp was issued, slightly after. And these envelopes were serviced by Izzy Baum in Montreal. And he was able to do a few blank ones just in case, and it's a good thing that he did. So he was able to incorporate these things and get the signatures of Halpern and Camilleri on the covers. Toronto also issued stamps for its centenary, and here's one with Zach Hyman's signature on it. Anybody, now we go to a more international context, anybody that's a certain vintage, and I'm getting near my 70th year, but anybody that lived in the 1972 era will, in Canada especially, will remember the 72 series, the series of the century. I would have to say that in my mind, it is my best hockey memory, my best hockey recollection of all the hockey games that I've seen. The series was outstanding. This is a postcard that was out in public domain. You could get them and have them serviced. And here is the photograph of Paul Henderson scoring the winning goal. The way it worked here was that Canada really thought they would just roll over the Russians. But people in the know said that wasn't going to be the case, because our guys just came off a summer of just sort of schlepping around, and the Russians train all year long. And it took our boys about 3 games to get their legs back on the ice. And they finally did, and in dramatic fashion, they won the game at the Luzhniki Sports Palace in Moscow. And here's Paul Henderson scoring the winning goal. And here's another picture. And you can see from this photograph, that was taken slightly after the one that I showed you, the defenseman on the right is Yuri Lyapkin. And Yuri Lyapkin remains the only Jewish player to appear on a hockey stamp. And so he suffers the guilt of being on the ice and losing Henderson in front of the net while he's tucked in the winning goal. And the famous picture by Brodeur, Dennis Brodeur, who's the father of goalie Martin Brodeur. Lyapkin was probably the best defenseman the Russians have ever had. And he was inducted to the Russian Soviet Hockey Hall of Fame, the Jewish Sports Hall of Fame. An arena has been named in memory of him. Here's a postcard, a team-issued postcard. He played in Olympics. He played in all kinds of international competitions. Here's the photo, his first day cover, really attractive first day cover that Canada Post issued. Again, this is an official first day cover on OFDC. And this is my attempt to get all the signatures on it. And it's taken me about 30 years to get this far. I still don't have Lyapkin's signature, though. I'm hoping one day to do that. This is how the stamps were released. Canada Post issues things primarily in booklet form now. And these are wonderful. They're full gum stamps. And you can see on the bottom, I've sort of clipped the bottom because they're sort of folded in underneath. You don't see them when you open up the booklet. And they did issue this commemorative booklet. And this particular one is worth, if you're into the hockey topic, or this is really a beautiful piece to get. The Canada Post issued like a souvenir thing with a T-shirt, and a poster, and all the other stuff. But this is the thing to touch base with. It's just a beautiful piece. And not only that, the booklet, by virtue of its nature, has to be folded to the inside edge. But the stamp sheet that you get with this package is not folded. And it has this wonderful postmark across the front of it. And it's a great souvenir. I would say it's for anybody that collects the hockey topic. This is one that I would really strongly suggest you to get. They're very scarce. And the Russians also celebrated it, not quite the way we did. This is a stamp sheet that they're sort of commemorating our, important Russian events and athletic events. And I was able to enlarge this, not easily, but I was able to do it. And you can see that this time the action is the Russians trying to score on the Canadian goalie, who you can recognize as Ken Dryden there. And Lyapkin is in front of the net, in front of Ken Dryden. The Russians have several hockey stamps, but the Jewish one that is of note is this wonderful one. First of all, the artist responsible for this did a fantastic job. This is really a beautiful portrait of Nikolai Epstein, who is revered in Russia as a hockey coach. He was a good player, a good international player. He played certainly domestically in the Soviet Union, but he was the head coach of the national team, the junior national team, and he assisted the Israeli national teams in Group B competitions for a little while too. He's also in the International Jewish Sports Hall of Fame and in the Russian Ice Hockey Hall of Fame. Aaron Berisha, I'm showing you here, playing for the London Knights, won the Memorial Cup in 2016 with the London Knights. He's wearing an A, and Berisha and Alec Levinsky, who you saw before, the only two Jewish players to have won the Memorial Cup. It's emblematic of the supremacy in major junior A hockey in Canada, which is the highest level of junior hockey. And Aaron was kind enough to sign this cover for me. So he and Alec Levinsky, who was passed away long ago, are the only two players to have won it. Aaron signed this beautifully for me. I'm really grateful to him for doing that. Those of you, again, that collect, Canada Post often has two different postmarks now. So there's an official first day cover postmark, and you can see how clean it is because it's machine done. But on the left, you can see the stamp being postmarked with a slightly larger hand cancel. In this case, it's the same design and the same color, but it's about 5% bigger. So those of those of you that are interested in this topic and first day covers, I love first day covers. So I always try to bring this to people's attention. This is a recent thing with Canada Post, but it's certainly worth noting. Berisha also went on 2 years later to win the gold medal at the Maccabi Games in Israel, where they have resurrected hockey since 1997. So he was on the 2017 gold medal team that won the Maccabi Games gold medal, hockey and gold medal. And you can see there's the arena in Jerusalem. And he is now playing in Austria for the 2021 season. And these are great. This is a picture that I was able to get from his Twitter feed. Fantastic picture of that team. And this is again, if you want to connect the whole thing together, this is the stamp that was issued to the Maccabi Games by Israel. A lovely first day cover with all the cancels on it. It's now time for the second intermission. So I'm going to ask everybody, what's the all-time best Jewish hockey nickname? This is a team picture taken in 1903. And in mine, there's no question for me that the best all-time hockey nickname is Porky Levine. Porky his real name was Sam Levine. But as the story goes, he was a junior player, and he was called into a team dinner and that was sponsored by the opposition in Timmins, Ontario, Northern Ontario. And the main course was roast pork, and he refused to eat it, and politely. And apparently the guys sort of foisted the name on him, and he was Porky Levine forevermore. Porky got a look by the Chicago Blackhawks, but he played primarily in something called the American Hockey Association, where he is statistically their best goaltender in the time, but the 10 to 15 years at that time operated. Notwithstanding Olympians Matthew Schneider and Tadeusz Sachs and Rudy Ball, several other Jewish hockey players have represented their countries with distinction in the modern era in the Olympic Games. It's hard to come up with all kinds of philatelic stuff for the early stuff with the countries. I was able to come up with something from 1960 for Alfred Kuczewski, who's in the International Jewish Sports Hall of Fame, played for Russia. And here is a first day cover that was issued to celebrate the gold medal that the Russians won in 76, and you can see that Lyapkin is in there. And here's Oleg Chergorodsky, who was a member of the national team that competed in the 94 games in Lillehammer. And this is a team-issued postcard. The text in it obviously is mine for this one, just to have some fun with it. And there he is there. This is an interesting story. This is Gary Hirschhorn. So Gary Hirschhorn is the photographer involved here. Gary Hirschhorn is a very, very good photographer. He's done exceptional freelance work for many, many, many years. He was with Reuters for a long time. Then he moved to Washington. He's originally from Toronto. You guys all have seen this photograph, and this is one of the famous historical photographs that Gary took. And he also was called to cover the Winter Olympics. So he was in the press box, and he was in the right place at the right time. And he took this fantastic image of the golden goal, that's called in Sweden, of Peter Forsberg beating Corey Hirsch on this gold medal winning game. And here's the stamp that the Swedes issued in 1995. Corey Hirsch refused to give his permission because he didn't want to be known as the guy that got beat on this goal. So the Swedish post office changed the color of his uniform and took the name off. They left Forsberg as it was. Gary told me that he never was in touch with the Swedish post office at all. And Reuters told them that they never bothered them either, but they did, to their credit, the Swedish post office did publish Gary's name on the bottom of the stamp there. And the artist that was doing the engraving did it. He redrew it from a double-page spread published in the Swedish newspaper. This stamp is really, really popular. It's a wonderful first day cover that Gary signed for me, and it was reissued as a 6 kroner stamp in 2013 as part of a Swedish Hockey Heroes series. This is really a lovely piece, and only 15,000 of them minted. They are also not easy to come by. But again, if you're a hockey topic collector, I would advise you to get this. This is a really, really beautiful piece. First day covers are tough to come by, and the only way you can get them is when you get the group together. I have yet to see an individual stamp, though I'm not discounting the fact that there may be some out there. Francois and Maurice Rosenthal, twin brothers, played for Team France in 98 and 92 at the Olympic Games, which is quite a feat. And I wanted to bring in the Paralympics as well. This is Sir Ludwig Papa Gutmann. And Gutmann got out of Germany in the nick of time, and he was able to make a life in England, and he is one of the people primarily responsible for the evolution of the Paralympic Games. And this is just a beautiful tribute to him by the Russians. It's a fantastic stamp. Again, very, very well illustrated. There's the logo of the current logo for the Paralympics, and this is the stamp itself. And here's a photograph of Paul Rosen, who represented Canada at 3 Paralympic Games, and he won the gold medal at the 2006 Games in Turin. And I was able to get in touch with Paul, and I asked him if he would sign a few things for me, and he was really, really kind to do so. I wasn't able to get an Italian stamp for the Turin Olympics with a proper illustration, but the Czech Republic had a fantastic sledge hockey stamp. I love what the Czechs do with first day covers. The illustrations are very tastefully done and don't overpower the cover. The postmarks are always well designed, and I love this cover. It really turned out well. Paul was kind enough to sign it with his number and endorsing the gold medal that they won in 2006. Canada put out one. Again, this is a fantastic illustration, one of the best done by a Vancouver design firm. It may very well be based on an image like that first image you saw of Paul there that has been flipped and sort of rendered in Adobe Illustrator. And here's the stamp. The stamp isn't quite as successful as the postcard because when you bring it down, it doesn't look quite as good. But Paul was able to do this for me as well. And here's a proud father talking about his sons. Paul Rosen is the fellow in the middle. And Paul was an assistant coach with the Canadian Maccabi fastball team that won the gold medal at the 2017 Maccabi Games in Israel. And you can see my sons, Robbie and Daniel, and my nephews standing there as well with Paul. So anyway, great thing, great photograph, and the fantastic Twitter picture as well. I'm switching now to hockey in Israel. You'd never think that would be able to play hockey in Israel, but you can. There's a rink that was built in Metula in the northern parts. This is Paul Schindman, who now you can follow Paul's writing in the Times of Israel and worldisraelnews.com. Paul played a big part in the establishment of the sport in Israel and played internationally for them for a number of years. In 2009, there was a World Jewish Hockey Championship. Ron Sorno was living in Ottawa, so I asked him if he would mind posing for a photo, and he came out in the middle of the summer and put on his gear, and I took this picture and created this postage stamp. And again, this is personal postage. It's created for Israel's personal postage program called Habul Shali, and you can see their tact is to attach one of their regular, the stamp with the flower on the side is legit postage. The stamp to the left with the hockey player that's attached to it cannot be used without the stamp with the flower. So there's Ron with the stamp, and there's a stamp, and I actually got to design the postmark as well. Really cool stuff. And I was working with these two wonderful women in Israel, Vered and Yael, and Ron signed the image for me. I got to design the envelopes and a bunch of different things that were used for fundraisers for it. In 2010, there was a recreational ice hockey championship, and people had seen the work that I'd done and approached me about doing some more. So I did these stamps for Habul Shali, Daryl Sittler, and Paul Henderson were the sponsors, and they went along and did all the public relations stuff. So there's the poster I did a series of banners. I did some stamps. You can see on the left, they signed this sheet for me. And I got to do an ad for El Al, Israel's Airlines, and I got to make a hockey thing out of it as well. And here's the stamp for that. We also had minor hockey things here happening in Ottawa. In the nation's capital, there certainly is a lot of interest. Prime Minister Harper was a big supporter of Israel at the time, and a number of people in Ottawa formed a committee headed by Mitch Miller, and we were able to bring in a touring Israeli under 18 team that they were traveling across Canada and the United States as fundraisers, and they were playing elite teams in each city, and again getting practice because they played in the IIHF at a certain level, whatever, and they used these games as a tune-up. So I was commissioned to do all the public relations stuff for it. Here's a program I designed for the first one, and there's a stamp that I did too. The Canada Picture Postage was a little different in 2005, so I had this huge banner thing that I had to use. This is a postmark, and you can see I had it signed by a variety of officials, including Canadians head coach, former head coach Jean Perron, and I had this one postmarked at the House of Commons when it was still easy to do such a thing. Here's the following year in 2006, the stamp and the program, and the envelope that I had done for that. Here's the following year, the 2007, and you can see that I had correspondence. Harper was very, very supportive all the time, all the way through for all these endeavors. He came to the hockey games here in Ottawa, and here's a photograph that Mitch was able to get for me of Harper with a Team Israel sweater with a really nice thing endorsed to me. And this is a letter signed by Harper supporting the games. And this is the 2007 game that, again, I had a little bit more creative flexibility with this one. So I went to town on the stamp and the program, and they both really turned out quite nice. And there's the cover that I did for this. The bottom signature on this is Mike Fisher, who used to play for the Ottawa Senators. Mike Fisher was a close friend of Roger Nielsen. The late Roger Nielsen was a huge supporter of Israel hockey and went there many summers to help coach and to organize Israeli hockey in Metula. And coming down the stretch with this, it's hard to believe, but with the signing of the Abraham Accords, powers that be in Israel and in the Emirates thought that it might be a cool idea to try and get a hockey game together. Now, in the Emirates, there is a hockey league that takes part in that part of the world, but they had never played a team from Israel before. And there is a domestic league in Israel, and obviously they've never been able to find the politics to be able to go to an Arab country and play, given the state of affairs. But with the signing of the Abraham Accords and the normalization of relations with the United Emirates and Israel, a bunch of like-minded people got together and thought, wouldn't it be a cool idea if we could do this? So anyway, the team from Bat Yam, an Israeli town that has a team, sponsored, got together and they organized this, and they, with the fellows in Dubai, and they had a series of games. And I was very, very fortunate. I contacted some people in the Emirates, their Philatelic Association and their post office, and they were very, very helpful. And again, I can design and put these things together quite easily. I put this together, and I asked them, I was actually able to buy a Dubai stamp here from a dealer in Ottawa. I put it on the cover. I prayed that it was the right value. The people in the Emirates helped me out with that. And I asked them if they could stamp it on the night of the first game. The first game was played before the Sabbath on the 18th, and the second game was played after the Sabbath. on the 19th, and it was an incredible success. And here you see everybody's a winner in this game. And you see the fellow from the Emirates and the captain of the Israeli team standing, holding the cup, and in the arena in Dubai. And what's really, really cool about this whole thing, as you see this picture of Vitaly Schwartzman, who was number 92 in the Bat Yam Chiefs. Vitaly Schwartzman, who competed here in Ottawa. Those covers that I showed you and those things that I designed for the 2007, he was here skating on the ice here in Ottawa for the 2007 Israeli Junior Nats when they were on tour. So I thought that was like a really cool way to tie the entire thing together. I'm hoping that this presentation will encourage collectors to think about the multicultural aspect of the hockey topic and its relevance and its importance to the history of our game. My late dad told me about the great Herb Carnegie, who you see in the middle, who had all the attributes of an NHL player, but because of petty prejudice was denied the opportunity to play. Imagine a comprehensive collection of material that illustrate the rich, rich history of Black hockey players, or similar projects for our First Nations peoples and our Asian skaters. It's even possible to put together something from Southeast Asia and some of the countries that play in non-traditional hockey markets with a little bit of luck. So I'd encourage everybody to do this. It's a lot of fun to put it together. For more ideas about this topic, I would urge everyone to have a look at Charles Verge's excellent ice hockey multifaceted collectible article in both the Royal Philatelic Society of Canada, the American Philatelic Society's current joint publication. He gives you lots and lots of ideas and where to go. And there's all kinds of other informative and well-researched pieces on the hockey topic in those magazines. Of course, finding early primary source philatelic material might prove difficult and time-consuming, but for true collectors and hockey fans, the fun is in the chase. Thanks so much, guys. It's been great.
The scope and breadth of this presentation is fantastic. My gosh, what a great lesson in the diversity of the sport. It's fantastic. It was really fun because I'm watching, we're streaming this on YouTube and Facebook. And so it was kind of cool to see some, I'm only going to assume that it was Russian because it seemed like that language, but you know, he gave you the big thumbs up. And another friend that was watching, what's that?
That's so kind, thank you.
And another person watching was like, he really enjoyed the LL stamp cover.
Yeah, that's fun stuff. All the people that I've listed here really were a big hand. I put Eric's name at the top because when your last name begins with a Z, you always end up at the bottom of these lists. He's a terrific guy and it's been a wonderful resource and help. But all the people on this list, including my beautiful wife, have been great in terms of supporting me and making this happen. This is a work in progress. So there are certainly more things to find out, more things to collect, and I look forward to continuing with it.
And anybody who's watching or commenting, the commenting on our live stream is, you know, from Canada, you know, a great presentation and so interesting. And you can find Irv's article. Of course, here is the issue that we're talking about with the American Philatelist. This is the APS version. There is just a slightly different version of the Canadian Philatelist with a Canadian player, but you can find Mr. Author's article of the same name, the same presentation name here in the AP. It's so cool. For anybody who's into hockey, you do not need to be into stamps to enjoy this presentation or the magazine. If anybody has any questions, you're more than welcome to ask them now. But in the meantime, do you have a favorite stamp? Do you have a favorite cover? I know you're a cancellation fan. What's your top?
The Paul Henderson one is one of my favorites. I think the illustration is really strong in it, and I think the cancellation across the whole thing is cool. But there are lots of them. The early European one, where I, was able to run across that on one of the online auctions, and I couldn't believe that somebody that had gone through what these people must have gone through during the Holocaust and the advent of World War II, and to put a cover like that together must have taken a lot of effort. So that one also has a special place. But and also, I guess the last cover, things are not great right now. There's lots of tension in the Middle East now, but you can see that if the Israelis and a team from Dubai can get together and play hockey, then anything is possible. Like really, like that cover is a symbol of peace for me, and I'm hoping things will work out.
Yeah, that was a very special cover, and the fact that you were able to get the Dubai stamp, and you said that you were just hopeful that it was the right amount, right? The right value.
That cover is actually in the collection of the Hockey Hall of Fame now.
Really?
Yep. Yeah. They have a large international section, and that's a very historic cover.
Mm-hmm.
I'd encourage people, if there are events in their own towns and cities that have special hockey events, tournaments, cups, it's very easy, to get together with your post office and put these things together. And in the United States, with the right amount of planning, you can get station postmarks and sponsor them, and do really, really cool stuff. And it's all possible to do. It's just a question of getting people on board with it. And since so many more people are now taking a second look at the hobby because of the pandemic, I'm trying to show you that you can do this. This entire collection that I put together, did not cost millions of dollars. It's just time and trouble and effort and networking. And I can even guarantee that I'll get one or two ideas from this presentation that somebody will text me or Facebook me and say, you know what, you forgot this guy, or you know what, there's a stamp that you should look into that was issued. And that's part of the fun of the whole thing. That's part of the fun of the hobby.
Yes, you're very good at bringing out the fun in the hobby. If you can see the creative use of the hobby, or the ways to implement really creative, through Irv was on for love letters, and so he showed us different ways of finding different postmarks. So he's an excellent resource for not just passion and enthusiasm, but exploring the hobby through a different lens. So we really appreciate you, Irv, being here and joining us from Canada, to our neighbors to the north. And thank you to all of our friends from the Royal Philatelic Society of Canada for joining us as well. And we're so excited about this May 2021 issue. If you haven't gotten it, or if you're interested in learning more, of course, you can find it on stamps.org, and it is the American Philatelist. So thank you so much, Irv, and please, participants, attendees, if you would join me in thanking Irv, we'd really appreciate it. Stamp Chat is a production of the American Philatelic Society. The APS is 28,000 members strong. The American Philatelist, the monthly magazine published by the APS, is proud to say that our featured articles are written by members and members of the RPSC for this month. If you're interested in submitting an article, send an email to aparticle@stamps.org. That's AP, just the letters, AP article at stamps.org. Looking for presentation ideas for your online Stamp Club meetings? Subscribe to the APS YouTube channel, where you'll find hundreds of online presentations to choose from, including others from Mr. Irv Oster joining us today. Until next time, connect, collect, and find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course, on stamps.org. The American Philatelic Society, social since 1886. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Irv.
Thanks a lot.